Okay, so now about connecting to a cluster. Essentially, there are many different ways how you connect, how you can connect. And it also depends a bit on what cluster you're trying to connect to, what things are being offered. We are mainly focusing here on the options that we give at Aalto, so with Triton, but most of them are also applicable for other HPC systems. Um, the traditional way to connect to a cluster is essentially SSH. You have a command line tool, be that Windows command line, Windows PowerShell, the WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux on a Windows machine, or any terminal on a Linux or Mac machine, and using the SSH command, which is just secure shell, which lets
Shall
you
we just
connect to a cluster.
so
Um,
maybe we can just show that quickly.
yep.
And let's see. So I've opened a Windows command prompt. Let me see, you should be able to see it. So it's SSH, and there will be
Your
what does it
username,
say?
triton.alto.fi in the case of Triton. Um, in the case of Triton or in the case of Aalto, you need to be connected to the virtual private network or have SSH keys set up. But um, for this demo, SUSE is connected to the VPN.
Yep. And then where am I here now? It says login for. Is this where is this on the cluster?
So essentially, what you where you get to when you connect to a cluster is not one of the compute machines. It's normally a login node, which is kind of a control node where you submit jobs, where you send jobs to the cluster, which will be discussed about later. The important thing to know about this is that um, this login node is not a place where you should actually run computations because on most systems, your resources that you can use on the login node are restricted. And if they are in use, you might really get problems actually connecting again to the cluster because if let's say, 10 gigabytes of memory or so that you are allocated and the two CPUs are in full use by some Python computation process, even your terminals might start to become really sluggish or not react at all because you don't have more resources on this machine because it's a shared resource and everyone should be able to work on there without the risk of someone saying, "Oh, okay, I'm just running a computation here," and slowing it down for everyone. So this is just the place where you connect to and where you start then distributing the work. And we can also maybe quickly show this via on-demand. On-demand
So you
is a
open a
service that
browser.
on-demand is a service that also many HPC systems nowadays provide, and it's essentially a web interface to the cluster. Um, on Triton, it's on-demand to triton.auto.fi.
So then when I open this,
And commonly, you can get a shell access there. You can get a desktop access, and there's one big difference here. If you get shell access on Triton,
I'll open this
um,
quickly.
this is again just a shell, so a command line for the uh, uh, for the for the login node.
This is
Essentially exactly the same as what we had with with the terminal connection earlier. But if you would request a desktop session, that's commonly a job that is actually running on on one of the compute nodes. So that's if you request a desktop or interactive graphical session, that is normally some type of job on the nodes where you can also then run computations and similar things in a user interface way.
Which is why you need to define
The resources that
the
you
resources
want
that
there.
you want. And
Um,
then you maybe need to wait a little while.
yeah. Another important note here is that um, very often these interactive resources are rather limited, and the reason for that is that uh, interactive resources on tenancy are kind of inefficient in the sense that you are very often sitting in front of this and thinking. And that means the whole time you're thinking about something, the computational power of whatever you requested is idling on tendency. Maybe if it's currently running something there, then okay, that's fine. But very often it's just idling. So um, for heavy computation jobs, you normally need to go through the queue system and submit jobs that are explicitly just running one thing. It's also this UI and the whole user interface thing, of course, takes resources. So you are essentially spending some resources just to have this UI. And if you want to have an as efficient job as possible, getting rid of that overhead is definitely beneficial.
So it's actually not good for what the cluster is made for, namely running big computations. But if you have results on the cluster that you want to just quickly check, you use it as one way to have a graphical user interface to look at the figures or something that would be produced.
And that's well connected to the cluster in contrast to trying to mount this remotely, where network connections might be slower and so on.
Yes. And it's
Um,
available also from outside, so you don't have to be on the VPN or close by.
yeah. There's one last way that we want to quickly show because it
Yep.
has become quite popular recently, and that's VS Code. VS Code
So if, yep.
has a couple of features, mainly one extension that's called the Remote-SSH plugin.
So I look for remote SSH like this.
Yeah,
There it is. And then I can
and
install it.
with that plugin, you can essentially do an SSH connection the same way as or almost the same way as you would do it with the shell. When you have installed this, you will see this Remote Explorer icon.
This
You
is
can
this
then
one here.
you can then
Yep.
either add, or Susa already has it added. So you can add it by clicking the plus on the SSH to tell a new remote, or if you already have one, you can go on that and essentially
Then it
indicate,
would
okay,
be if you wanted to add, you would add this like the same
username at
command at right on.
.aalto.fi. And why we want to show the VS Code in particular is there are a few issues with VS Code. It can be a great tool, but if you connect to a cluster with VS Code, on general principle, never open a folder or never connect opening a folder that has lots and lots of files in there. Open things that actually have code and not data. And also don't open, for example, your home folder. And the reason for this is that if you would do that, VS Code tries to index files that are in the folder, and it does this for all files in the folder, which means that um, it will constantly ask, has this file changed? Has this file changed? And if you do this for a folder that has a lot of files in there, you are essentially starting to run a small denial of service attack on the file system servers that are around on the cluster.
Please don't
because
do that.
so that's why we want to hint here that I want to mention here that yeah, use a subfolder that actually has your code to connect to it and use it like that. And one more thing with VS Code, um, in general, try not to run VS Code Jupyter notebooks because VS Code essentially when you use this Remote-SSH plugin, it starts a VS Code server on the other side. And if you have Jupyter notebooks open on the other side, that is not being closed. That is not being shut down when you disconnect. The server will keep running. And that means if you have computations in there done in that Jupyter notebook, you still have this running and you're running this on the login node. So when you use VS Code, try not to use Jupyter notebooks interactively.
So is it that I shouldn't even open this IPyNB file?
That I think depends a little bit on the plugins that you actually have installed. But I personally wouldn't edit Jupyter notebooks on the on VS Code on the remote with the remote SSH plugin. You can potentially run VS Code on a cluster node and do things like that, but I wouldn't do it on the remote SSH. Okay, but with that, I think we will stop here to leave enough time for questions, for individual questions if things don't work during connection, so that we can get as many of you as possible started on the cluster and connected to the cluster. Uh, so people from Aalto should have no, or no, people from Aalto, or Helsinki should all have a link to a Zoom where we can help with connecting to their respective clusters. And I think we will pause the stream here now till 11 finish time. Or is it no? Wait. Yeah, essentially till 11 finish time, and allow people to try to get connected to the cluster.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to the break time. So yeah, so this is the first exercise time. So we will mute the stream. We will go to the notes here. You see there's lots of questions that have been asked about this. We'll put in the bottom a little thing that says what you should be doing right now. So yes, there are lots of things that can go wrong here. Don't worry, don't be afraid. You can keep asking questions here. If you're in Finland, we have a Zoom that you can join, and we have breakout rooms for some universities there, and you can ask for live help. And remember, if you don't have time before the next presentation starts, there's still 2 hours until we actually start doing stuff on the cluster. So you can keep asking questions in the notes during the time. We'll try to figure out what can happen. If you're at Aalto, you can send us emails to the addresses and we can look, because you shouldn't be adding your usernames to this document. Yeah, and good luck. Now you have time to read and stuff. Okay, talk to you later then. Bye. Hello, hopefully you can hear me out there. So now we're going to a break pretty quickly. So if you look at the notes here, you see there's many questions happening. So that just goes to show how hard it can be to even get connected to the cluster. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily hard, it just there's so many different things for everyone, where you are, what university you are, how you're trying to connect, how your computer is set up, is your account new or old, and so on. So like we said before, If you can't do it now, it's okay. You're welcome to keep watching the course. Next, we have a demo of the cluster after a short break, a demo of a cluster from CSC. So you still have more time to work on this. What else? Yeah. And you notice here in the notes, there's this little poll here. So you can add an O to done if you finished. If you couldn't get connected, then you could put an O under tried and connected and an O under not trying if you weren't even trying. And that way we can sort of see what the status is. Yeah, overall, basically, don't worry. If this seems hard, it's one of the hardest parts, unfortunately. And just keep coming back. Don't worry. And with that, see you in 10 minutes for the next session. Bye.